Many architectural objects from around the globe have a truly bad reputation. People even come here on purpose to be frightened of its past. Any psychic will feel bad. These localities are filled with the energy of endless suffering, death, and unimaginable for many horror. The torment of both the guilty and the innocent. Fortresses, locations of mass executions, places of detention. But what can we do? This is part of the history of this or that state, and these places are shrouded in mysteries and tragedies. And today, the Vietnam will be discussed in this episode. Since it is in this country that the former House of Correction is located, which received an abbreviated version of the name Coconut Prison from foreigner travelers. What are these torture chambers famous for? For what and whom was tortured here? Since even in the 20th century, relatively not long ago, people were tortured here. And by torturing, we mean just like in the unforgivable Middle Ages. So, the topic of this episode is Coconut Prison and history of this place. Secret Chronicles here. Keep watching. Origin. The facility is located on the island of Phu Quoc. A piece of land lies in the Gulf of Thailand, opposite the border of Cambodia and Vietnam, but it belongs to the second of these two powers. By size, it's comparatively large. The rich land is how the name of this place is translated from Vietnamese. And the rich land in the tropical zone, as you know, has always attracted European colonizers. Like other locations in Indochina, Phu Quoc was first, so to speak, discovered with all the natural resources, mainly spices, by the Spaniards and the Portuguese. And in the New Age, the French have added their so-called contribution. No different from other colonial administrations, the French enslavers first of all built a place of confinement on an isolated island, and Phu Quoc is the largest in that zone, for anyone who was against the power of the new masters, or just all sorts of dangerous types of people for their influence. It was the first version of Coconut Prison. The name is due to the fact that the prisoners of the sorrowful place became automatically slaves of the coconut plantations of the mentioned piece of land. What was this prison like? Moving on to the immediate biography of the prison, it should be mentioned that the French built it at a difficult time period, in 1949-1950. What is it known for in those latitudes? The First Indochina War. Rebels tried to overthrow the dictatorship of irritating outsiders. Colonial security forces rounded up rebels throughout southern Indochina and threw them there, supplementing the company of prisoners with criminals from offenses in civilian life. The prison remained open and the convicts kept arriving. The prison camp was tripled in size during the Second Indochina War of 1964-1975. The French were expelled, and Indochina was ideologically divided into a socialist-leaning north and a capitalism-aspiring southern part. The size of the camp was just increasing. Pro-communist population were ruthlessly tortured to give names, addresses, and schemes. Prison already as a museum. Well, before we go into describing the horrendous things that took place in the walls of the Coconut Prison, let's take a moment to travel back to the present day. A visit to this place gives members of a school trip and vacationing foreigners to understand what was going on in the dungeons of the Coconut Prison. In a tiny but truly terrible museum near the prison still hang the names of all the prisoners, as well as the personal belongings of some of them, their various personal belongings, their drawings, and their clothes. And today we see that inside the exposition, which tells about the lives of captives, a model of the camp has been made. Judging by its size, it immediately becomes clear that this is a whole city of inmates. Literally hundreds of iron barracks with wooden bunks. There are even scary sculptures of prisoners inside the memorial institution. Among the prisoners, it turns out there were also women. And we must say again, if you've made it to this point, you still have a chance to stop watching. After all, what will follow next is an absolute nightmare. A list of shocking details regarding their stay. It's thanks to what will be described below, the Coconut Prison has not only entered the textbooks of Vietnam and Cambodia, but has also become known to many people in all countries around the world. The infamous point of breaking the spirit of people. First, in 14 blocks, a total of several hundred barracks, the roofs were made of tin. Sometimes there were as many as 3,000 prisoners in each block, inadequately overfull and incredibly unsanitary. Well, second point, the Red Cross Inspectorate finally made its way here. Journalists yelled for international recognition of basic human rights violations, Having visited the terrible camp 2 times, in 1969 and 1972, representatives of the international community sent a note of protest. However, the tortures and inhumane treatment was not even about to stop. Third, the Convention on the Detention of Prisoners of War was drafted a long time ago, during the First World War. However, the hatred of the Vietnamese capitalists for the Vietnamese socialists proved to be much stronger than anything imaginable. At that time, cruelty was extreme on both sides. Here we are talking about real cruelty. Fourth, tiger cage is the name of a structure of 2 by 2 meters in which the height was only for lying or sitting on the floor, 2 people of small size, and perimeter barbed wire. Fifth, a katso cage is a metal container in which several prisoners were left without food or water at once. In the heat and without clean air, it became really bad here. It was used only for commanders of Viet Cong detachments, in other words, ideologically dedicated. If it was plus 32 degrees Celsius or more outside during the day, can you imagine what those who found themselves inside the iron walls of the box, heated by the sun to a whopping 52 degrees felt? After all, here the whole group had to go to the restroom. It's a terrible torment. Sixth, those placed in the tiger cage were only allowed to have shorts. On cold days and nights, it was useless to ask the jailers for some junk to cover the body. Seventh, the victims were flogged, their fingers were trampled, and they were thrown bound into a basin of water that stood over the fire. But that's not the whole list. They picked out their teeth with tools, heated the bench from below with a torch, and there was a prisoner lying on it, as you may have guessed. Here they found a skull with a chisel inside. Eighth, how else did the prison administration suppress the camp's activists, turning them into amoebas? The administration beat them with truncheons and wooden hammers, didn't let to keep warmth during some nights. Add this all up to an increase of the size of the barracks heated by the sun. They were hung in various ways under the arch of the barracks with their hands and feet tied. Ninth, inmates, despite thorough supervision and preventive measures, tried to escape from the coconut camp about 300 times. They were digging. More often, they fled during hard work on coconut plantations, disarming their guards while they were transporting weapons. There were 7 undermines. They dug with tablespoons, 1 person at a time. The longest of those rescue passages was as long as 20 meters. Those groups that took possession of weapons managed to fight their way of freedom. Others were not so lucky. They were fired in the back. More than 4,000 people out of 40,000 prisoners remained here until their end. Thank you for watching. This was Secret Chronicles channel. Leave a like and subscribe, it helps our channel grow. And take a look at our other episodes. And for now, see you later.